Round of applause, please, for Dave Bean.
Thanks, everybody. This thing working? All right. Well, Dave here with Vara. Great t-shirts. Sorry for the wrinkles, but this is hot off of the presses. There's more in the back if you want to get your own. So shameless plug to pick yourself up some Vara swag. So I want to talk about some of the smart solutions that we have for Vara. I guess a lot of people are talking about smart solutions right now, so it's in vogue with Polkadot. So the idea that we want to chase here with this, am I blocking? I'm blocking part of the thing. The idea that we want to chase here is we want to really bring crypto, have its like Web 2.5 moment from a crypto native angle. So what I mean by this is early companies like Coinbase and Binance and even like the BlockFi, rest in peace, of the world, did a lot to move the ball forward in crypto by making it very, very easy for users to onboard, get their first crypto, and interact with crypto for the very first time. In those contexts, it was in a very like, you don't hold your own keys, and it's, you take a lot of counterparty risk with the exchange or lending company themselves. But the contribution that they made to crypto was by having this very easy on-ramp. We're taking this similar kind of approach, but from a Web3 first standpoint. We want to build the tools that are necessary both for developers and for the end users to have sort of this very easy on-ramp experience into Web3. So a brief introduction about some key terms. Gear is the underlying framework that powers smart contracts. Vara is the network that runs on Gear. The idea here is that we are a computation platform where you can run any kind of arbitrary code as if it's running in Web 2, anything that compiles onto WebAssembly, whether that's written in Rust or TypeScript or C++ or anything else, to have a very flexible, adaptable program for just the next generation of Web3 programs. So the first feature that I want to talk about, and then we'll talk about use cases. The first feature is something that we call gas reservation. Gas reservation, higher? Okay, all right. So gas reservation allows a smart contract to allocate a certain amount of gas that is available to anybody, either a user that uses the contract or for some autonomous execution of contract code. This video, which I guess is now like end of the loop, was how you would do this in our Gear Idea platform. So you just go, send a message, reserve some gas for a contract, and it's sort of like there and available. And I'll get to like why this is really, really valuable in a minute. The user journey of users getting into Web3 is this very long and complicated process. So I don't know if anybody's done this recently. It's been several years since I had to onboard. So I went back and redid the process. So like I don't have an exchange account. I haven't on-ramped, have any fiat on-ramps. I don't have a wallet. So I set all of that up from scratch. It took me 122 clicks and 55 data entries to get from 0 to Web3. And along the process, I had to give up really sensitive information like my passport, my social security number, my home address, all these different kinds of things, where it's like, if I'm a user and I say, hey, I just want to try this cool dApp, or I want to like get this NFT or whatever, I don't really want to go through this whole process. And there's just like a lot of churn in that sort of like pathway. Enter this gas reservation system. We think of this in some ways as Web3's freemium model. Users can come and interact with applications without ever having to get tokens or gas to begin with. The smart contract can supply that up front. What this now means is that you as a developer can launch any kind of application, whether that's a social app, a DeFi app, NFT, gaming, whatever. Allow users, and this can like be preset for a certain number of blocks or a certain amount of gas. You can pre-fund this gas to the wallets so that users can try out your application without ever having to go through this sort of like odyssey of getting into crypto first. So with this automation in this gas reservation system, it takes the onboarding experience, if a user wants to come with a wallet, from 20 down to less than 20 clicks and fewer than 10 pieces of data information and no private information that they would need to enter themselves. With more sort of like account abstraction on the application layer and having people like sign up with MPC wallets using their email, this also kind of like eliminates the need to interact with C phrases. The other critical thing here is it's a very low risk way for users to start using apps. They don't have their own money at stake. If they're a noob and they lose their private key or forget their password or whatever, it's like this very low stakes, low risk environment for them to get started. Another thing that we have built, which is available on the Gear Wiki, is a decentralized DNS. So we have the ability to host websites in a serverless context, basically hosted by Web3, and specifically on Vara. So this is important because it's now like this unstoppable, auditable, transparent kind of interface, publicly available and accessible by everybody. And then if you want to store, we have like other integrations with like Crust and Arweave and everybody else that you can like handle storage on that level. But the idea is that the more things that we can decentralize along the stack, the more immutable these programs become, and the better the user experience overall, and the fewer kind of choke points. The last thing I'll talk about before we get into some of the use cases around this is our fully on-chain mutable NFTs. So a fully on-chain NFT means that an NFT holds all of the metadata, the image data, and everything like natively stored on chain. And then mutable means that it adapts to interactions from on-chain events. So a simple example of this is you could build like a NanoPet or Tamagotchi from the 90s era. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember those, but like this was kind of a hot thing back in the day. You can build this kind of NFT that like if you like feed it, or the longer that like time goes on or whatever, it like adapts and changes, but all of it's happening natively on chain as opposed to having to route things to off-chain workers. Okay, so what are some other use cases that utilize some of these primitives? We've built, and again, is available in the Vara wiki, and you can run this on testnet, as a Tamagotchi battle. So you have these two NFTs that have like attack and defend. It's this like sequential thing. So I attack, you defend, and vice versa. And then again, the NFT sort of like adapts as these interactions happen. The next one is Syndote, which is like a game of Monopoly with a slight twist. This isn't a game of Monopoly where I roll the dice, I move, I choose if I buy a property, but rather I basically preload a strategy that and you play like have multiple players preload a strategy, and then you run the game autonomously, and it just sort of like runs and executes, and then you have a winner at the end. This is really interesting from a developer standpoint because it's like a very lightweight way to come and interact and start building in Rust contracts and this kind of thing. But it also utilizes our gas reservation system because the game will just like you start it and it just like runs from the pre-funded gas. The users don't have to bring their own gas in this case. Okay, shifting gears just a little bit from gaming to more like social and enterprise. Another thing that we've built and is available on Gear is a subscription model. So because of our architecture, you can do fully on-chain automation features. And we'll have more examples in DeFi later. One of these examples is subscription services. So I used to be at Coinbase, and I ran the Coinbase Commerce business, the business side of the Coinbase Commerce product, which is the like merchant payments. One of the biggest pain points for people that want to accept payments is the fact that like most blockchain payments are push only. And so it's like if I want to have monthly recurring revenue, it's like the user would have to log in, open their wallet, and click sign transaction every time you want to push a payment. It's also like complicated, and it gets a little bit nuanced for like rideshare apps and these kinds of things where booking the ride and then sending the transaction really need to be done at different times. So with subscriptions, and then ultimately like subscriptions are built today, soon we'll launch streaming payments. We can kind of solve a lot of these problems. And streaming payments, by the way, are like every single block, there's a payment that's issued as opposed to like one payment each and every month. So another application that our team is working on right now is basically like a decentralized Zoom. The idea being that you connect two wallets together. The Zoom happens on some peer-to-peer protocol, so it's not like running on Vara, but like on some like separate peer-to-peer protocol. But you can also start to imagine layering in payments with Zoom calls as a way to have bootstrap like a social network. One example of an idea here is I used to, before Coinbase, I worked on a product called Earn.com. If anybody is familiar with that. Earn.com was like the first like X to earn thing in crypto, I guess, after mining. But basically it was like you set up a profile, you say, hey, if you email me, send me 5 Bitcoin, and you pay me if I respond, right? So it was like, it was basically like a micro payments for micro tasks on this product. What we really so it's like you can do emails, you can do like send a survey. We have like, people would give customer feedback, and any successful feedback submission would get paid out. And we did a lot of things with this application. Ultimately, what we realized is we were creating a marketplace for people's time, not just like a payment for like email or whatever. An extension of that like concept, and something that we were thinking about at the time, and I'm really excited that we finally have the tooling for, is something where you could like literally say, imagine like a VC pitch. It's like, hey, I'm gonna pay you for every minute that you're on the phone with me. These payments stream real time on chain. As soon as the product is disconnected, then the payment stops. And so it's like this very direct sort of like marketplace for people's time. And there's other like kind of permutations and examples of how this might be used as well. But like these are the kinds of primitives that we're building at Vara. Okay, cool. Last thing that I'll mention is some of the DeFi use cases. I mentioned the fact that Vara has a lot of native on-chain automation features. This means that we now, when you build some like a DEX, which we have a team that's doing right now, an ecosystem team, first of all, we have the capacity and the compute to run a fully on-chain order book. There's pros and cons to that. AMMs like Stella Swap are really, really good for like long tail and very easily listing items and things like that. So there's a huge, huge benefit. Collabs are a little bit more, I guess, how shall we say, high maintenance, I guess. But they also have like greater sort of like capital efficiency for people that want to participate in the market. But so we can support collabs. But in addition, you can build natively on chain with our automation tooling, things like limit orders, stop losses, trailing stops, dollar cost averaging, and then like auto rebalancing. So like imagine you wanted to launch some sort of DeFi product that was like the top 10 coins by market cap that rebalances monthly or daily or block by block or however you want to do it, based on changes in market cap. And so it like rebalances the relative allocations between them. This is now possible with the automation tooling we have on Vara. Okay, so why are we doing this? We're doing this because we've built Vara with the developer in mind, solving 2 critical things. The first critical thing that we're solving for them is we want to make developing in Web3 familiar to somebody who's used to developing in Web2. So similar tooling, similar languages, similar development paradigms. And additionally, we want to make sure that they have the available assets that they would need to onboard users to their applications, reduce the barriers to entry, and get sort of like their user growth that they need to have a very successful dApp that's comparable to like Web2 dApps or Web2 applications, where they can support tens and hundreds of millions of users easily onboarded by avoiding a lot of the friction that we talked about before. And then just a couple of stats here. If you think about like the size of the developer ecosystem in Web3 today relative to what the total developer ecosystem is globally, it's a huge pie. Part of the reason that we've chosen WebAssembly as a platform is because of the roughly 30 million developers worldwide, something like 20 million of them develop in some language that compiles onto WASM, which means that there's this gigantic pool of developers that we want to onboard with these tools using Vara. And then, so it's like, okay, if the pie is this big, why are they not here today? I've mentioned this quite a few times, but it really is friction. Unfamiliar development paradigms, new languages, lots of like learning and getting up to speed. And then again, at the end of the day, they want lots of users to be able to use their stuff. And there's a lot of user friction today, and we're aiming to solve all this stuff with Vara. All of this is powered by the underlying sort of like architecture of Gear. I don't want to get too into the details. We have very technical folks here from the Gear team that you can get into as many technical details as you want. But ultimately, we've built an asynchronous computation platform that allows like, a memory allocation to every smart contract, so that we have like this native storage layer on chain that manages state and other kinds of things that enables, again, these like full on-chain mutable NFTs and automation and all this stuff. So all of it's powered by Gear, and Vara again is like the first deployment, the first network. But if anybody like wants to build a network on Gear, you certainly can do that as well. So the sky's the limit on this stuff. And that's it for me. So if you want to claim an NFT that we have available, feel free to scan the QR code. But otherwise, thank you so much for the time. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm happy to take some if there are some.
How many clicks? How many clicks will it take to get that NFT?
So scan the QR code. It's going to take you to Telegram. Depending on how accessible your Polkadot address is,
3 or 4?
3 or 4 clicks, and then you just insert it, and then the NFT gets dropped.
But I thought that was a very good example.
Call it like sub 5 clicks.
Yeah, nice. That's impressive. Do we have any questions for Dave?
Or maybe somebody in the audience, once you've gone through the process, can tell me how many clicks it took.
Yeah, good idea. All right, guys, that's Dave Bean. He's the COO of Gear as well. Not only, so what would your role be at Vara? Would there be a role for Vara sort of, or is Vara a product of Gear?
Bingo. So the way we think about it is Gear is the project, Vara is the product.
Right,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I work for a company called Gear Technologies, which was the original contributor and is still a core contributor to the Gear protocol, which powers Vara.
There we go. All right, give it up for Dave Bean, folks. Really impressive. Enjoyed that. Thank you, Dave.